4 years ago, in one of my very first videos on this channel, I said that the Philadelphia 76ers should fire then head coach Doc Rivers. Today we got breaking news that Doc Rivers is stepping down as the head coach of the Milwaukee Bucks. My guess is he was going to be fired here in the next couple days and step down early just to save the embarrassment of getting fired yet again. Doc Rivers is the most overrated coach in NBA history, and I can't understand why he continues to get these high-quality jobs by teams thinking they're making a move trying to win an NBA championship when he has proven time and time again he is just not that guy. He was voted one of the 15 greatest coaches in the history of the league in the last few years, and this year will be entering the Naismith Hall of Fame as a 2026 recipient for being a head coach, even though he had a playing career as well. But he's entering the Hall of Fame as a head coach. Doc Rivers has had opportunities with great players, great teams, and great organizations to win championships or compete for championships at the very least, and has consistently fallen short. We know he's won one championship, and I'll get to that in a second, because he almost lost that championship in round one, if you don't remember that season. But Doc Rivers started his coaching career in 1999 with the Orlando Magic. He had Tracy McGrady and a team that was not expected to be very good. They finished the season 41-41, where Doc Rivers got his one and only Coach of the Year award for a year that they missed the playoffs and had a .500 record. Doc Rivers in those next 3 seasons proceeded to lose in the first round of the playoffs all 3 years, and in 2003, after starting 1-10, was promptly fired from his Orlando Magic head coaching job in his first stop in the NBA. He immediately picked up a job with the Boston Celtics. That first season, they went 45-37. In the following 2 years, they won 33 games and 24 games, winning percentages of 40 and 29. It was looking like he may get fired from yet another head coaching opportunity when he was given the golden platter. Kevin Garnett, the Boston Celtics make a huge trade for one of the best players in the NBA, Kevin Garnett. One of the greatest defensive players we've ever seen, a guy who won an MVP in 2004, I believe it was. And then they also made a move to acquire Ray Allen. At the time, the greatest shooter in NBA history, and a guy who had been a really good NBA player for a long time. The Boston Celtics were sporting a roster of Rajon Rondo, Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, and Kevin Garnett. 3, maybe 4 Hall of Famers. The Boston Celtics that year were the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference and in the NBA, going 66-16. In the round 1 of the playoffs, they met up against the 8 seed Atlanta Hawks, who took them to 7 games. Doc Rivers' only championship season was almost lost in the very first round. Can you imagine how much different this guy's resume would be talked about if they had lost that one Game 7? But sometimes that's how sports work. It's the margins, and that's what makes it so beautiful. Careers are defined, good and bad, by moments, by games, by singular series. And that series was significant in Doc Rivers being able to coach for 27 seasons in the NBA. The next year, they dealt with a little injuries in 2009, did not make the NBA Finals, but the following season in 2009-2010, they returned to the NBA Finals to lose to the Los Angeles Lakers in Game 7. No shame in that. They had Kobe Bryant. The Lakers had won back-to-back championships, and Kendrick Perkins got hurt in that series. Was pretty significant. 2011, 2012, they go 39-27, 59% win percentage in the shortened season. And the following year, his final year in Boston, they go 41-40. He then gets traded to the Los Angeles Clippers from the Boston Celtics. The Celtics said, "We're done with you. We're ready to move on." They moved on from a lot of their older players, and they moved on from Doc Rivers. They traded him for a first rounder, which turned into NBA legend R.J. Harvey. The Clippers, with Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, they had spurts of J.J. Redick, Matt Barnes, ton of good players on those Clippers rosters. Consistently did not achieve at the level that they should have, and got bounced before the second round, or before the Western Conference Finals, having never made the Western Conference Finals with Doc Rivers as their head coach. After that, they made a move. That era they moved on from. They then acquired Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, where Doc Rivers then blew another 3-1 lead against the Denver Nuggets in the year that the Lakers won the championship in the bubble, a team that underperformed yet again. Doc Rivers was fired from his job with the Los Angeles Clippers and immediately got another great job with the Philadelphia 76ers, a team that had a young budding superstar in Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, a guy who had been on all NBA teams. That team was given a second-round playoff series against the Atlanta Hawks. This Hawks team keeps coming up. Against the Atlanta Hawks, where Ben Simmons refused to shoot a layup, and Trae Young was their best player for the Atlanta Hawks. Ben Simmons didn't shoot that layup, and after that game, where the Sixers blew a series that they absolutely should not have, and in the next round, we're facing a Milwaukee Bucks team where Giannis Antetokounmpo was ended up being hurt. This was the Sixers' best chance to make the NBA Finals. The Sixers blew that series to an Atlanta Hawks team that they absolutely should not have lost to. After that game, Doc Rivers did what he does, and he blamed Ben Simmons for not taking that layup. Ben Simmons' career never being the same. Ben Simmons was then traded for a guy in James Harden, who's one of the greatest scorers we've ever seen. So Doc Rivers was then given James Harden and Joel Embiid, another elite duo with a chance to win an Eastern Conference that had been up and down from year to year. It's been won by Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat. It's been won by multiple iterations of the Boston Celtics. It's won by the Raptors for a year, the Cavs. Many different teams. The Pacers won it last year. Many different teams has won the Eastern Conference, but Doc Rivers has not been a coach of those teams in over 15 years. After failing with the Philadelphia 76ers, James Harden, Joel Embiid, the Sixers decide to move on. And Doc Rivers decides that he is going to go call games for ESPN. Doc Rivers does that for about 40 games into the season when the Bucks decide to fire their head coach at the time, Adrian Griffin. I think it was Adrian Griffin, who I think was like 30-18 or 30-11. He had a really good record. Doc Rivers takes over this team, and it underperforms again with Giannis Antetokounmpo, and then they get Damian Lillard. Doc Rivers, again, his team falls short in the playoffs. They never make it past the second round. In fact, they lost in the first round both years, the first round, 2-4, and then last year they lost 1-4 in the playoffs. This year, Damian Lillard is gone. The Milwaukee Bucks had Giannis Antetokounmpo, who they sat out most of the season trying to lose games, but they also made moves for other players like Miles Turner. The Milwaukee Bucks roster was good enough to be more competitive than it was this season. They went an embarrassing 32-50, and Doc Rivers is out as the head coach of the Milwaukee Bucks. The reason that I think it's so embarrassing, his resume, is because we watched a coach in Joe Mazzulla for the Boston Celtics this year be without Jason Tatum, without Al Horford, without Drew Holiday, without Kristaps Porzingis, a team that we did not expect to actually be competitive this year. And they finished second in the Eastern Conference. If you need any more proof that he is not the guy that's going to lead your team to a championship, I don't know what you're looking at. He has coached 27 years in the NBA. He made the NBA Finals with the first big three in memory for the Boston Celtics, Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, and Paul Pierce in a playoff run that they almost lost in the first round. And has not even come close since then. He has blown the most 3-1 leads in NBA history with 3 of them. He has lost the most Game 7s as a coach in NBA history with 10. What do both of those things tell you? They tell you that his team was good enough and competitive enough to win those series, but they fell short. They choked and they underperformed. And those kinds of things don't just happen because your 8th best player didn't come to play. They start at the top. Doc Rivers has not had his guys ready to play, and he constantly blames other people. And this year again, he wants to blame it on the injuries. I am sick and tired of hearing that excuse with Doc Rivers. You see so many other coaches in the NBA that are able to get the job done. The Pistons lost Cade Cunningham for a lot of games this season. They were still able to win games. The Nuggets lost Nikola Jokic for over a month. in January with his injury. The Boston Celtics played without Jason Tatum for a majority of the season. Jalen Williams was out for the Oklahoma City Thunder for a ton of games. The Milwaukee Bucks have Giannis Antetokounmpo, a guy that most of us believe is a top 5 player in the NBA and plenty good to carry a team at least to the playoffs. Get the job done for once, Doc Rivers. Why do you constantly blame other people, injuries, rosters? It's always someone else's fault. You've had the opportunity to coach so many Hall of Famers. Let me read a little list to you. Tracy McGrady, Kevin Garnett, Joel Embiid, Paul Pierce, Chris Paul, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Ray Allen, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and James Harden. Those are some of the greatest players in NBA history. The Doc Rivers has coached all of them. He has one NBA Finals to show for it in a season where they had clearly the most stacked roster and almost lost in the first round. One other Finals appearance, and beyond that has underperformed year after year after year. And I can't comprehend why he continues to get these great jobs. Why did the Bucks think that hiring Doc Rivers was going to be what they needed to turn their season or to turn? I mean, they had a good record at the time, but to lead them to the promised land. What am I missing something? Because Doc Rivers, to me, has shown that he's not that guy. And it's why I called it out 4 years ago, and I'm calling it out again today. If someone goes and hires this man again, I will not understand it. If you're the worst team in the NBA and you just need a guy who can come in and, has been a head coach before, okay, maybe give the guy a shot. But other than that, quit giving him jobs where you think he's going to be able to compete for a championship. He is not a championship level head coach in the NBA right now, and that is okay. We see it time and time again. Guys who win championships in sports who 10 years later, 15 years later, are not able to compete at that same level anymore because the game passes them by. If you look at the NFL, there was a coach named Jeff Fisher who won an NFL championship in the early 2000s. He, kept a head coaching job for a long time, kind of living off of that one title. He then, was one of the worst coaches in the NFL, got fired from the Los Angeles Rams. Sean McVay took over and immediately turned that organization around. Jared Goff was the quarterback. And if you watch the NFL, that Rams team has been competitive for a long time in a good organization. Guys sometimes win championships early in their careers. Rosters pan out and things just go their way. Maybe they understand the game a little better in certain eras, but the game evolves and the game changes. And that is okay. But it is time to move on from some of these old coaches that don't get the job done. Doc Rivers is not that guy. He's not one of the 15 best coaches in NBA history. He probably shouldn't be a Hall of Famer. If you just want to say that he's a big part of NBA history because he played, his son played, he's coached for 27 years, whatever. But all in all, this is not an elite NBA head coach, and that is okay. It is okay to admit and to not hire this guy for job after job after job, because if that Thunder coach retired this year, I think somehow he'd end up as the Thunder head coach because he just keeps getting elite jobs with elite players around him and does not get the job done. So if you're someone that still believes in Doc Rivers, I don't know what to tell you, but he is not that guy. That's all we got for you regarding this news. We're going to be covering a ton of NBA storylines and games going into the playoffs here as the regular season finished up today. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Appreciate y'all watching. Salvo Gal.